Did you know that in 2025, up to 10 U.S. states are seriously considering breaking away from the Union? It might sound like a plot from a dystopian movie, but this is happening right now. And here's the kicker. Some of these states are looking northward, wondering if Canada might be their escape plan. From frustration with federal policies to growing cultural divides, these states are questioning if they truly belong in the U.S. anymore. But could it actually happen? What would it mean for the future of America? Stick around as we dive into this shocking trend you won't want to miss. Number 10. California. California, the most populous state in the U.S., has long been known for its progressive politics and out-of-the-box thinking. But recently, the state has been flirting with the idea of independence, with more than 60% of residents in some polls saying they'd be better off if California were to break away from the United States. It's not just fringe groups pushing this idea. Many believe California's massive economy, cultural influence, and global connections make it capable of going solo. The desire for independence in California isn't new. Over the years, secession movements have popped up, but now, with rising political tension and dissatisfaction with federal policies, the conversation is gaining real traction. California, a state that already has the world's fifth largest economy, has the financial clout to potentially make it on its own. From tech giants in Silicon Valley to its sprawling agricultural heartland, California's economic power is undeniable. But it's not just about economics. California has always seen itself as a global player, and many of its citizens believe that their values and priorities are more aligned with progressive nations like Canada than with the rest of the United States. Environmental issues, healthcare reform, and social justice policies are some of the key areas where California feels at odds with federal policies. As the state continues to push forward on climate goals and social reforms, the idea of aligning more closely with Canada, a nation known for its progressive policies, is becoming more appealing. Shared environmental goals, similar political leanings, and a focus on inclusivity and innovation make Canada a natural partner for those advocating for California's independence. While the legal hurdles are immense, secession is highly unlikely. California's growing desire for self-determination is undeniable. Whether this movement ever leads to actual separation remains to be seen. But for many in California, the idea of cutting ties with the U.S. is no longer a fringe fantasy. It's a conversation that's gaining steam. Number 9. Texas. Texas has always had a reputation for big ideas and bold moves, but recently the conversation about independence has shifted. While secession has long been a topic in Texas, largely due to the state's unique history as a former republic, today's discussions are less about breaking away entirely and more about forging new relationships. Specifically, some Texans are exploring the idea of aligning with Canada on key issues like energy, trade, and technology. Texas, with its powerhouse economy, is often compared to entire countries in terms of GDP. Its vast oil reserves, natural gas, and agricultural production make it one of the most influential states in the U.S. But as tensions rise over federal climate policies, immigration issues, and political polarization, many Texans are looking for alternatives. Could Canada, with its shared resources, economic stability, and progressive policies, be the answer? Energy policy is one of the most significant points of interest in these conversations. Canada's energy transition plans, combined with its thriving oil and natural gas sectors, could align more closely with Texas's interests than with Washington's climate initiatives. This growing alignment could make Texas more inclined to look northward for collaboration rather than relying on the increasingly divided federal government. Beyond energy, the tech sector in both Texas and Canada is booming. Cities like Austin are becoming tech hubs, while Canada's growing innovation ecosystem makes it a tempting partner for economic expansion. Could Texas and Canada form a strategic partnership to bypass federal bureaucracy and trade restrictions? While secession remains unlikely, a deeper economic relationship with Canada is starting to look more feasible. If you found this exploration of Texas's shifting mindset fascinating, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to stay updated with more stories on the changing dynamics of U.S. states. Trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. Number 8. Washington. In Washington, a new movement is gaining traction. one that envisions a future where the state no longer identifies with the United States, but instead forms a deeper connection with its Canadian neighbor, British Columbia. This idea, known as the Cascadia movement, is rooted in the belief that Washington shares more common ground with Canada than with the rest of the U.S. The push for independence isn't about breaking away from the U.S. entirely, but rather reimagining the region's political and economic alignment in a way that better reflects its values. Cascadia is more than just a geographical region. It represents a shared vision of progressivism, environmental stewardship, and social justice. The tech-driven economy of Seattle aligns closely with Vancouver, British Columbia, in terms of both innovation and cultural values. As climate change becomes an increasingly urgent issue, both Washington and British Columbia have adopted aggressive environmental policies, from clean energy to carbon reduction goals. Many people in Washington feel that their state's progressive policies are often at odds with the federal government's stance, particularly under the current administration. The idea of joining forces with Canada on these issues seems like a natural progression. But it's not just about politics. There's also a growing economic argument for greater collaboration. Both Washington and British Columbia have thriving tech industries, and the region has already seen increasing cross-border trade and cultural exchange. Seattle and Vancouver are just a few hours apart by car, and the ease of collaboration between the two cities is already evident in everything from joint environmental initiatives to tech partnerships. While full secession is nearly impossible due to legal and constitutional barriers, the idea of a closer political and economic alignment with Canada is gaining serious consideration. The Cascadia movement reflects the desire for a future where Washington's relationship with Canada is not just based on geography, but on shared values and a collective vision for progress. Number 7. Oregon. Oregon's political landscape has been shaped by a stark divide between its urban liberal areas and the more conservative rural regions. In recent years, this divide has grown so pronounced that a surprising movement known as the Greater Idaho Movement is gaining ground. The movement is focused on shifting several conservative-leaning counties from Oregon into neighboring Idaho, a proposal that highlights the frustrations of rural communities who feel underrepresented in Oregon's urban-centric political system. However, the movement's roots extend beyond simply joining Idaho. The deepening dissatisfaction with state policies has led some rural residents to consider a more radical idea: aligning with Canada. For many of these areas, agricultural policies and climate initiatives that are central to their way of life seem better suited to Canada's approach than the policies coming from Oregon's progressive legislature. Canada's agricultural practices, particularly in resource management and environmental policies, are seen as more aligned with the values of rural Oregonians. Climate change and environmental regulations have also become points of contention. While the state of Oregon is pushing forward with ambitious climate goals, rural communities often feel the policies disproportionately affect their farming, logging, and resource-based industries. For these communities, the idea of aligning more closely with Canada, which shares many of these agricultural and environmental concerns, appears to be a potential path forward. Though the idea of realigning with Canada is unlikely to become a reality, the Greater Idaho Movement is a signal of deeper discontent within Oregon's rural regions. These areas are seeking governance that better reflects their values and priorities, and increasingly, that may mean looking to Canada for inspiration. The growing interest in this shift underscores how stark the political and cultural divide has become in Oregon. Number 6. Colorado. Colorado, known for its beautiful landscapes and booming cities like Denver and Boulder, is facing a growing rift between its urban and rural communities. While Denver's progressive policies on climate change, gun control, and healthcare have defined much of the state's direction in recent years, many rural Coloradans feel alienated by these urban-centric decisions. The tension between the two sides has led to rising frustration, with rural residents increasingly questioning whether their values and way of life are represented in state governance. While the idea of full secession remains a distant fantasy, there's a growing conversation about how rural Colorado might better align with policies that reflect their agricultural, energy, and economic priorities. For many, the federal and state regulations, especially on energy production and land use, are seen as burdensome. These rural counties, which rely heavily on agriculture and energy industries, are finding that the progressive policies coming out of Denver don't always match their needs. Interestingly, some rural Coloradans are now looking to Canada as a potential model for governance that balances environmental goals with the realities of rural life. Canada's more measured approach to energy development, rural broadband expansion, and agricultural subsidies is seen as more sympathetic to the challenges faced by these communities. In fact, certain Canadian provinces have long been advocates for policies that ensure rural areas have the resources they need to thrive without sacrificing sustainability. While the idea of Colorado splitting into two states or joining Canada outright is highly unlikely, the conversation around adopting Canadian-style policies is gaining momentum. With increasing frustration and a desire for more balanced governance, it's clear that rural Colorado's vision for the future may look more like Canada than the progressive urban policies currently driving the state's direction. The idea of realigning toward Canada, though still speculative, is certainly a development to keep an eye on. Number 5. Illinois. Illinois is experiencing a quiet yet growing movement in its rural regions, with many residents frustrated by what they see as Chicago's dominance over the state's policies. The political and cultural divide between the urban center of Chicago and the rural areas of downstate Illinois has never been wider. For years, rural communities have felt that their concerns, particularly around taxes, agriculture, and local governance, are sidelined by the more liberal, urban-focused policies that come from Chicago. This disconnect has sparked the emergence of the New Illinois movement, a push for a political realignment that could see rural regions either join neighboring Indiana or form a new state altogether. While the New Illinois movement is primarily focused on gaining independence from Chicago's political influence, some are taking their frustration even further, considering Canada as a potential partner for a more favorable alignment. With agriculture being a key economic driver in downstate Illinois, many farmers and rural residents feel that Canada's agricultural policies are more in tune with their needs. Canada's less restrictive regulations on land use, crop subsidies, and trade could offer an environment where rural Illinoisans feel their interests are better supported. Additionally, many of the cultural values in downstate Illinois, such as individual rights, family-oriented lifestyles, and economic conservatism, align more closely with Canadian values than with the political climate in Chicago. This growing sense of disconnection between urban and rural areas is fostering a conversation about whether Canada could serve as a more supportive partner for these communities. While it's unlikely that Illinois will split into two states or formally realign with Canada, the increasing dialogue about these options reflects a deeper yearning for change. Rural Illinois may not just be looking to escape Chicago. They may be seeking a future where their way of life is more in harmony with neighboring Canada. Number 4. Florida. Florida, known for its sunny skies and bustling tourism industry, might not seem like a prime candidate for secession, but there's an undercurrent of change sweeping across the state. While the idea of Florida breaking away from the U.S. remains largely within the realm of fringe groups, a quieter shift is taking place, one that's driven by rising insurance costs, political polarization, and looming climate risks. Over the past few years, a growing number of Floridians have started to consider Canada not just as a vacation destination, but as a viable alternative for a more stable and sustainable future. The first major factor in this quiet migration is the increasingly unaffordable insurance market in Florida. With natural disasters like hurricanes becoming more frequent and severe, residents are facing skyrocketing premiums that make living in the state less financially viable. For many, the idea of relocating to Canada, where the cost of living is generally lower and the healthcare system is publicly funded, has become an attractive option. The higher cost of living in Florida, combined with the risk of environmental damage from climate change, is making Canada's more stable and affordable environment look increasingly appealing. Another significant driver is political polarization. As the national political climate grows more divisive, some Floridians are looking for a change of pace. Canada's more centrist political approach, along with its focus on social stability and inclusivity, stands in stark contrast to the bitter political divide seen in the U.S. Many are drawn to Canada's universal healthcare system and its emphasis on community over partisanship. Whether or not Florida ever formally secedes or follows the trend of other states seeking escape is still uncertain. However, the shift toward Canada as a destination for those looking for a different life is becoming more of a reality. Thousands are already making the move, and the conversation continues to grow. The question is, will more follow? Only time will tell. Number 3. New York. New York, the state that serves as a major economic and cultural powerhouse in the U.S., is beginning to show signs of frustration with federal policies. While the state has long been a leader in progressive ideals, many residents now feel that the national government's stance on critical issues like healthcare, climate change, and gun laws no longer aligns with their values. As these policies continue to diverge, more and more New Yorkers are questioning whether a realignment with Canada might offer a more harmonious future. New York's progressive reputation, emphasizing social welfare, environmental responsibility, and inclusivity, has often put the state at odds with the current federal government. From the state's commitment to ambitious climate goals to its strong push for universal health care, New York's policies have frequently clashed with national priorities. In fact, for many residents, Canada's more progressive stance on healthcare, climate action, and gun control has made the idea of a closer relationship with its northern neighbor more appealing. The growing political divide in the U.S. only adds fuel to this conversation. As the national political climate grows more polarized, New York's desire to break away from some of the federal government's more contentious policies has reached new heights. Canada's universal healthcare system, climate-forward energy policies, and gun control measures align more closely with the values held by many in New York, making a shift in alignment feel more like a natural fit. Although the idea of full secession is still far-fetched, the concept of a closer political and economic relationship with Canada is gaining traction. Could New York explore deeper ties with its northern neighbor? With growing dissatisfaction and a clear divergence in values, the conversation is likely to intensify in the coming years. The seeds for this potential shift are already being sown. Number 2. Nevada. Nevada is a state often associated with its neon lights, booming tourism industry, and the hustle of Las Vegas. However, beneath the glitz and glamour of the city lies a growing divide between urban and rural communities. The rapid pace of urbanization, driven by the explosion of Las Vegas and other metropolitan areas, has left many rural Nevadans feeling disconnected and neglected by state governance. As progressive policies take hold in cities, the rural communities, whose economic lifeblood often depends on agriculture, mining, and land use, are finding it harder to relate to the policies being passed at both the state and federal levels. One of the key points of frustration for rural Nevadans is federal overreach. Issues like land use, water rights, and environmental regulations are being driven by policies that don't always take into account the realities of rural life. For example, many rural communities are facing strict land management and environmental policies from Washington that they believe impede their ability to use the land for farming, ranching, and resource extraction. This sense of being left out of the conversation has prompted some in rural Nevada to consider a new direction, looking toward Canada for policies that align more closely with their needs. Canada's approach to land use, agriculture, and energy development is viewed by some as a better model for Nevada's rural communities. Canadian provinces like Alberta, which have extensive agricultural and energy sectors, have developed policies that balance resource extraction with environmental sustainability, something rural Nevadans feel is lacking in U.S. governance. With this in mind, some are even considering deeper ties with Canada, not in the form of secession, but through stronger economic and policy alignment that better supports rural Nevada's values and way of life. While full secession is unlikely, Nevada's rural areas are increasingly asking, could a stronger connection with Canada offer a more sustainable future? The conversation is certainly gaining momentum as these communities seek a better fit for their needs. Number 1. Arizona. Arizona has always been at the heart of national debates over immigration, border security, and federal policies. The state's location along the U.S.-Mexico border makes it a key battleground for immigration reform, But as tensions rise and Washington fails to deliver effective solutions, some Arizonans are questioning if there might be a better way forward, one that involves looking north toward Canada. The frustration with Washington's inaction is palpable in Arizona. The state has long been forced to deal with the consequences of federal policies, or the lack thereof, on issues like immigration and border security. As the state grapples with a rising population of undocumented immigrants and the challenges of securing its southern border, many citizens feel abandoned by federal leadership that seems unable to provide real answers. These frustrations have led some to wonder if aligning more closely with Canada, known for its more welcoming and structured immigration policies, could offer a better path forward. But it's not just immigration that has some Arizonans considering Canada. Arizona shares several key interests with its northern neighbor, including environmental policies, trade, and even healthcare. With Arizona facing severe water shortages and growing concerns over its environmental impact, Canada's more proactive environmental policies seem like a better match for the state's needs. Canada's approach to sustainable resource management, particularly when it comes to water conservation, is seen as a potential model for Arizona to emulate. Additionally, Canada's healthcare system, which emphasizes universal access to care, could resonate with many Arizonans frustrated by the U.S. system's rising costs and coverage gaps. While a full political realignment with Canada seems unlikely, the conversation about how to forge stronger ties on shared issues is gaining ground in Arizona. Could Canada provide the solutions to some of the state's most pressing challenges? It's a conversation that continues to evolve, with no easy answers yet in sight. And there you have it, 10 states grappling with the idea of leaving the U.S. and seeking new alliances, possibly even with Canada. What do you think? Could we actually see some of these states break away, or is it all just talk? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. And if you haven't seen it yet, check out my previous video where we dive even deeper into this topic. We put a lot of effort into bringing these stories to you, so your support means the world. It's just one click to subscribe. Help us keep bringing you the truth.